Thanks, Jerry. Good afternoon, everyone. Many of you might be familiar with Highlands. We've been operating up in PNG for more than 20 years, and we've currently got interest in 4 projects up there. We've got a strong community and government reputation, which makes us an ideal partner to operate up in PNG. And we've got some big, good partners, Anglo American, MCC, Guangdong Rising Asset Management, Graham and Sajid's. From an operational point of view, each of our projects have progressed nicely over the last 12 months. Highlights include exploration, fieldwork, geophysics and drilling, all taking place in our Star Mountains copper-gold project. Ramu achieving record production rates in excess of design nameplate and at low production cost levels. An application for a special mining lease, together with a lodgement of an environmental impact statement with our Freda project, and a LiDAR survey undertaken at our Seawell Bay project. The key shareholders for Highlands include PNG STP. Previously it was the part owner of the Oktedi mine in PNG. Now it's a managed fund which has about $1.4 billion of funds under management. Graham, who are our partner at the Freda project, and Trafigura, a major commodity trading house. Currently we've got about $10 million in the bank, which leaves us reasonably well placed. Now we'll go through each of our projects in a little bit more detail. I'm going to move quickly through Freda, Star Mountains and Seawell Bay and concentrate more so on Ramu because it's the project that's generating the most excitement at present. First of all, Freda. It's a project with a massive resource. It's one of the top 10 undeveloped open pit copper projects in the world. It's got a resource inventory of nearly 13 million tonnes of copper and over 20 million ounces of gold. It's a project that has a joint venture between ourselves with 20% and Panost, a wholly owned subsidiary of Graham, who are a Chinese state-owned company, with 80%. The project's currently going through the permitting stage. The permitting of a project such as Freda is complicated. It's anticipated that the PNG government will take until later on this year before it reviews all the documentation. The government's not only got to consider the various approvals the project requires, but it's also got to consider the level of equity that it will acquire in the project. The PNG government's got the right to take up to acquire up to a 30% interest in the project. If it does so, then our interest will reduce down to 15%. If they only take up to 20%, then our interest will stay at 20% and that reduction will come off Graham. Our second project, the Star Mountains Copper Gold project, Anglo American became a joint venture partner in 2015. And look, we believe the joint venture arrangements that we were able to secure at that time provides Highlands with certainty in terms of project funding and also the right incentives to encourage Anglo to advance the project. Currently, as you see there, Anglo have the ability to earn up to an 80% interest in the project. However, to achieve this, ultimately, they've got to complete a feasibility study and they've got to provide Highlands with $150 million in project funding. Currently, we're in phase 1 of the earn-in. There's 2 milestones in this. First of all, Anglo have to spend US $25 million on exploration within 4 years, which they've already done so. And the second milestone is they've got to come up with a 3 million tonne copper metal equivalent JORC inferred resource within 5 years. The key for Highlands is that we have no funding requirement to this project for a very long time. At Star Mountains, we've got 7 exploration licences up there covering just over 1,000 square kilometres. We've undertaken 4 drilling programs to date, one in 2011 and another one in 2012 prior to Anglo joining the joint venture, and then another one in 2015 and one currently underway in 2017 with Anglo. We've undertaken geophysical surveys in the form of ZTEM and AMT over much of the ground, and we've also undertaken a very large field mapping exercise. The drilling since Anglo's come into the project has targeted holes of 800 to 1,000 metres in depth, and this is an indication of the size of the deposit that Anglo are seeking. Currently, the drilling program will complete at the end of this next hole, which is back to our Olgal prospect, where we had an extremely good intersection previously. We drilled 5 holes at Fune and Unfin in this current program. Our third project is the nickel laterite exploration project down the southern tip of PNG, a place called Siwa Bay. Our partners in this project are a Japanese trading house, Sujitz, and Pacific Metals, and they're funding the expenditure down there. So far, we've undertaken 2 programs, a 1,000-metre auger drilling program in 2013, a 1,500-metre program in 2015. And as I mentioned before, this year we've completed a LiDAR survey over the entire lease to help identify further targets and also to help with infrastructure assessment. Now, looking at Ramu, the Ramu Nickel Cobalt project, it's a real success story in PNG. The project is a joint venture between ourselves, MCC, the PNG government and the PNG landowners. MCC, for those of you who don't know, is a major Chinese government state-owned enterprise, and it's recently merged with China Minmetals, who are the owners of MMG. That'll put together a mega company that's focused on resources, engineering and construction. MCC came into the project in 2005, and they were responsible for funding and constructing the project, which cost about just over $2 billion to build. It's taken some time, but we're now achieving full production rates. It's 32,600 tonnes of nickel and 3,300 tonnes of cobalt annually. The project consists of a mine site that sits up on a plateau that's inland, and it's connected with a 135-kilometre slurry pipeline down to a process plant on the coast. The process plant has its own port, and from here, the intermediate product, basically a concentrate of nickel and cobalt, is exported, mainly to China, but also to other destinations. Ramu's got a very significant resource, 124 million tonnes of nickel ore with a healthy grade of 1% nickel and 0.1% cobalt. Cobalt's certainly a hot commodity at present, and I guess the point I'd like to make here is that we're not exploring for cobalt, we're actually producing it. The current mine life is about 15 years based on reserves and about 35 years based on resources. This photo here is a shot of the mining operation at Ramu, and it's been a real highlight. Mining at Ramu consists of 2 methods. There's the conventional digging with excavators, and then there's a hydro sluicing with water monitors. The conventional method accounts for about 70% of the production, and the sluicing about 30% and growing. Sluicing was something that Highlands introduced into the project, and MCC have taken that and progressed it to the current state that it is now. The sluicing method is about 40% cheaper than the conventional mining method, so it's a development that's been worthwhile. As I said before, the Ramu operation started production in 2012, and you can see from this graph that it's steadily increased to the current state. During 2016, unfortunately, there was a fatality at the project, and production was stopped for 3 months while the manager undertook a full investigation. That 3-month shutdown effectively reduced production by about 8,000 tonnes of nickel. The 2017 production target is for 32,600 tonnes of nickel and 3,300 tonnes of cobalt, which is the nameplate capacity. And currently, we're on target to achieve this. This chart here just shows the production by quarter. You can clearly see here the impact of the shutdown in 2016. But you can also see, since the shutdown, the improvements in production levels. The March quarter was down slightly. That was because 2 of the 3 HPL trains undertook their annual scheduled maintenance. The June quarter, you can see there of just over 9,000 tonnes of nickel. If you annualise that, that equates to about 110% of the design capacity. So to go with these increasing production rates, we've also been achieving decreasing production costs. We're currently producing for around US $5,500 a tonne of nickel. That excludes the sustainable capex, but also excludes the cobalt credits. So these costs compare nicely to the current nickel price, which is over $11,000 a tonne US, and a cobalt price that's today, I think, just touched over $60,000 a tonne US. Just sort of talking a little bit more about the nickel and cobalt market. Our major demand for nickel is the stainless steel market. Roughly 70% of the nickel produced goes into the stainless steel market. So clearly this is a market that's going to drive price for nickel. But the battery market is making a big impact for both nickel and cobalt. The electric vehicle revolution is happening, and its impact is likely to be felt faster than expected. All the automotive players now are working on electric vehicle technology, and governments all around the world are mandating reduced emissions. So when people talk about batteries, be it the batteries for vehicles or just batteries for storage, everyone thinks about the lithium batteries. However, depending on the exact type of the battery, they can contain a significant amount of nickel and cobalt. There's 5 main types of batteries. With the lithium cobalt oxide battery, it's the dominant one for the portable electric device market, so laptops, etc. However, nickel cobalt manganese and the nickel cobalt aluminium types are becoming increasingly popular for the industry standard for electric vehicle applications, mainly due to their high energy density and their increased life cycles. So the key takeaway for me is that cobalt's in every one of those, and nickel is in the 2 types where the industry is growing. To go with this demand for the underlying commodities of nickel and cobalt, our Ramu project produces a product called a mixed hydroxide, which is basically, as I said before, a high-grade nickel and cobalt concentrate. This product is a preferred source of material for the battery manufacturers, and Ramu is now one of only 3 projects around the world that produces this product after the closure of the Ravensthorpe mine in WA. All our customers are battery manufacturers, as I said before, mainly in China, but also in other destinations. So going forward, if this demand continues or even grows, we should see an improving nickel and cobalt prices, and also improving payables in terms of what we are paid for our contained nickel and cobalt in our concentrate. So there are our 4 projects. If you stand back and you look at the portfolio, you can see that we've got projects at various stages in the development cycle. In production, we've got Ramu with nickel and cobalt. Permitting stage, we've got Frida with copper and gold. And then at the exploration stage, we've got Star Mountains with copper and gold and Seawell Bay with nickel. These graphs here just show the prices for the commodities that we're leveraged to. And all of them are showing promising signs. Cobalt's the real standout, but of late, copper is improving, and as is nickel. So if you like these commodities, then Highlands is a company that does provide you leverage to these. This slide here just details how much leverage exactly that is. This is the Highlands inventory. So we've got our share of the projects gives us 2.6 million tonnes of copper, over 4 million ounces of gold, 108,000 tonnes of nickel, and about 11,000 tonnes of cobalt. So that's our share of the contained in-ground metal of the projects. So in summary, we've got projects that are progressing and performing at different stages in the development cycle, and in commodities that look to be on the increase in terms of pricing. Thank you.